we're now going to talk about the use of technology in this class. We are in chapter 11.3. The main program that we're used for graphing is Desmos. So what I want you to do is go onto the internet right now and open a Desmos program. Maybe you already have it downloaded on your phone, but open one up. And all you do is type in Desmos and graphing and select Desmos graphing. And you'll see that this one's set up not in the way that we'll want. It is set up with sines and cosines and tangents, and the x and the y-axis are not how we would like them to be. So I'm going to go ahead and clear out all of this, and I'm going to start a new blank graph. Now my x and y-axis are going from -10 to 10 in the x direction, and it looks like it's going up to 6.5 and down to -6. That's a good start. Now if you want to right now, you can play around and see what happens when you type in certain things like 2x or y equals 2x. What happens when you just type in a number. You can see what you think is going on. Not much happened with a number, but if you had done y equals a number, there's some more information down below. Go ahead and mess around if you'd like. But what I want us to do is go to your notes now. There's a question for us here. We're going to mess around with zoom and scale and a few settings here in a while, but let's do it with an example. Example 1. We're going to graph f of x and g of x. F of x is 3x plus 4, and g of x is x squared. Okay, so going back to Desmos, and I'm going to type it in exactly as they had it. F of x equals 3x plus 4. And see how it gave me that little warning symbol? It's saying subscripts cannot be empty. I've got a box there that shouldn't be there, so I'm going to delete it. Okay, now I've got a nice graph. All right, and let's do the other one. It was g of x equals x, and it said squared, which is a 2 in the sky, and so like, oh man, I don't know how to get that 2 up there. If you're using your keyboard, I hit Shift 6 and it brings me to the exponent position. If that's uncomfortable for you, you can hit this show keypad and it will show you how to get to the exponent position as well, and some other things that you might find useful. All right, so now we have the two equations that we're looking to work with, and you'll see that one of them, the f of x equation, is linear and the other one is a parabola, and we're starting to see a few points of interest. So this point here is interesting because it's the minimum value of the g of x equation. This point here is interesting because that's an intersection point of the two graphs. We've got our y-intercept, and all I'm doing is using my mouse and it's snapping to the grid. It's finding those points for us. So if I had clicked just randomly on this line, it's not going to stay a part of the image because it's not an intersection point. That one will, so if I click it, it will stay, and it'll tell me my x-intercept. Now, I really want to see all of the intersection points, and I'm only seeing this one here. There's another one up above. I can use my mouse and drag my graph. Oh, but I'm just not getting it. Okay, so that's not great. So I can zoom out using my mouse by going in or out. I can also use this minus sign to zoom out. Don't zoom out too far because you start losing information. And also zoom in. All right, so that's something. Maybe you decided that that's an okay window. it's okay. Let's see what else we can do. If you get lost, by the way, and you don't like your window at all and your graph is just gone, you can hit this home button and it'll take you back to where we had started. So I'll zoom out again, so at least I can see my two intersection pieces. All right, now I'm gonna hit this wrench. And I thought that I could do a little bit better. I've got all this blank space over here that's not giving me any information. So I'm going to change my x-axis to be from -10 to 10. Okay, and that I like. Okay, we've got a bunch of stuff down here. Maybe it's not terribly useful. I want my graph to be centered in the screen, so I'm going to change my y-axis now. I don't need to go down to -28. Showing a little negative is not bad, so I'm going to go down to -10. All right. That graph I like. And this is the graph that I'm going to sketch in my notes. I'm going to put down the scale that I had decided that was the most appropriate. And in my x, it was from -10 to 10. And in my y, it went down to -10. So I'm going to count along my x-axis. You can count by ones if you'd like. And then along my y-axis, how high did it go? I forget. Let me look. It went up to at least 25 or 30, and it was counting by 5, so I think I might do the same. Counting by 5s, and I need to go up to about 25 or 30. And when you're labeling your graph, you'll want to make sure you label your x-axis with an x and your y-axis with a y. And you'll want to give me a scale so that I know what you're counting by on both your x and your y-axis. It's not important to me that you label every single number on your x and y-axis, but I need to be able to determine what you were counting by. And now we're going to graph f of x and g of x. So f of x had a y-intercept of 4 and a slope of 3. So I'm going to put the y-intercept down, and I'm going to get another point so that I can get a good sketch. And I'm going to use a lot of technology right now. I'm going to put this point down. I'm going to put down the point 416, and I'm going to label it. So far I've graphed this point 0, 4. I'm also going to graph the point 416 in my notes. 416, and I'm going to label it because it's an intersection point. That's good enough for the line. Don't forget to label the line with its name. Now for g of x. G of x had a y-intercept at the origin, and it was a parabola. It went through the point 416, and let's get another point that it went through. G of x also went through this intersection point at -1, 1. -1, 1. And I'm going to label that one. And I'm going to label the line g of x. So that's a pretty good graph. You've labeled the lines, you've labeled the axes, and you've labeled the points where the lines intersected each other. And now we're going to use the graph to answer these questions. B, when will f of x equal g of x? All right, f of x will equal g of x at the points -1, 1 and 416. When will f of x be larger than g of x? You can think about larger as above. So when will f of x be above g of x? And f of x is the linear line, the straight line. So f of x is above g of x. I'm just going to make it a little more solid so you can see it between these 2 points here. F of x is larger than g of x between, so it starts at -1 We're talking about x's, and we're going to go all the way to the x value of 4. And the symbol was strictly greater than, not equal to. So we're going to stick with that. So between -1 and 4. What you're going to do to practice this is this next one. You're going to choose an appropriate window for this function f of x and make sure that that window shows its key features and sketch the graph below. So what I would consider to be key features in this graph, because it's a parabola, would be the vertex, that lowest or highest point it goes to, and if it has any x or y intersection. So any x-intercept or y-intercept, I would want to know where those values were. And I would want to see what your scale was on your x-axis and along your y-axis. And then you're going to tell me what those x-intercepts and y-intercepts were and where the minimum value was of that parabola. And from there, we'll be moving on to group work. So try using Desmos now with your graph and get a good image here. Do this by hand for now, so work on a separate sheet of paper. I am not interested in your copying and pasting ability, although in the future we can talk about that. Okay, I will talk to you all soon.